Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into what our sources call, well, maybe the ultimate hurdle facing the African Continental Free Trade Area,
Hmm.
the AfCFTA.
Mm.
I mean, this thing is huge. It's the world's largest free trade zone. We're talking 55 nations, 1.5 billion people.
Yeah, and a combined GDP of what, $3.4 trillion? It's a staggering undertaking.
Absolutely staggering.
And the goal of AfCFTA is crystal clear. Boost intra-African trade by over 100%,
Right.
and lift maybe 50 million people out of poverty by 2035. Huge goal.
But the research keeps pointing back to this one thing, this massive economic potential. It seems like it's being held back by a really basic failure to communicate.
It really is. And you're talking about complexity on a scale, well, it's unmatched anywhere else.
Over 3,000 spoken languages across the continent.
Just imagine trying to standardize trade policy with that.
Or harmonize customs, or even just, agree on product specs. That linguistic diversity, it acts like a massive invisible tax on every single transaction.
It's like friction, constant friction. And look, this isn't a new problem, right? Adam Smith was talking about language and commerce back in 1776.
Way back.
And modern economic models, the gravity models, they basically confirm it. Having a shared language, it can boost bilateral trade by, wow, maybe more than 30%.
30%, that's huge.
It is, because it slashes communication costs, transaction costs, and maybe most importantly, it builds trust between traders.
Okay, so the economic need is clear. There have to be a solution. And that brings us right to the core idea we're looking at today.
Right.
The plan to institutionalize Kiswahili as the main Pan-African language for trade. And this isn't just about, vocabulary lists. The whole proposal is framed using institutional theory, using its three pillars, regulative, normative, and cognitive, to pull off what's basically a massive continental mindset shift.
That's exactly the right framework. Institutional theory really helps us get our heads around how rules, social norms, and shared beliefs all kind of work together to standardize behavior across different countries, which is precisely what the AfCFTA needs if it's going to actually work.
Okay, so let's start with the language itself. Why Kiswahili? What makes it the candidate?
Well, Kiswahili is a remarkably strong contender. You've got over 200 million speakers already,
200 million.
stretching across East, Central, and Southern Africa. And linguistically, its roots are Bantu, which is indigenous.
Okay.
But crucially, about 35, maybe 40% of its vocabulary, that comes from Arabic.
So that history of mixing helps.
Definitely. It makes it geographically and culturally more accessible across different regions,
And the institutional groundwork is already there, isn't it? It's not starting from scratch.
Not at all. Kiswahili is already an official language in the East African Community, the EAC,
Right.
and the Southern African Development Community, SADC. That alone gives it a working reach to over 400 million consumers. Plus, it's a working language at the African Union, the AU.
So the structures are somewhat in place. But beyond the practical stuff, the numbers. There are huge societal implications here, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely massive. For many, Kiswahili represents a language free from, let's say, the historical weight of colonial influence.
Less baggage.
Exactly. Using it could promote a shared African identity, maybe even help reduce some of the inequalities tied to, English or French dominance. And it has a track record. It's helped unify diverse groups in East Africa for decades.
That's the promise then.
Yeah.
Unity. A shared identity.
Yeah.
But look, if this was easy, it probably would have happened already. Our sources are pretty clear that making Kiswahili the institutional language is, well, it's going to be tough. What are the biggest hurdles right now?
They really fall into two buckets: political, financial, and cultural.
Okay.
On the money side, we're not talking small change. Rolling out the infrastructure, setting up language institutes, training teachers, printing materials, creating digital tools.
Yeah, that sounds expensive.
It is. We could be talking hundreds of millions, maybe billions, over the long haul. And frankly, not many African nations can just absorb that kind of cost without serious help from donors or supranational bodies.
And I guess that financial strain feeds right into the political resistance.
Absolutely. Some countries might see adopting Kiswahili, even an African language, as sort of an imposition.
Especially if they already have hundreds of local languages.
Exactly. It could feel like it threatens their own linguistic diversity, sparking real cultural pushback. You have to be careful about that.
And there's probably immediate economic pressure too, right? Like Rwanda switching to English made sense for global trade. Does prioritizing Kiswahili conflict with that?
That's a key tension. Policymakers have to constantly stress this is about a common language for intra-African trade.
Not necessarily replacing English or French for global stuff?
Precisely. It's meant to exist alongside those, at least initially. Balancing that is central to the whole 25-year plan we'll get into.
Okay, understanding those challenges makes this next part critical. How do you actually force standardization across 55 diverse countries when the money's tight and politics are complicated? That takes us to the rules, right? The regulative pillar.
Exactly. The regulative pillar is all about using the formal stuff. Policies, mandates, monitoring, and importantly, incentives, carrots, and sticks to shape behavior.
Okay.
It's sometimes called coercive isomorphism. Basically, using rules to make everyone do things the same way.
So what's the first big rule change? Harmonizing documents.
That's a core piece. The idea is to mandate dual use of Kiswahili in official trade documents.
Dual use, so Kiswahili alongside English or French.
Yes. For things like customs forms, product descriptions, certifications, legal contracts, especially those used by Pan-African bodies like the AfCFTA Secretariat, the African Development Bank, UNECA.
Okay, I see. That immediately creates a standard and helps businesses maybe shut out now by language barriers?
That's the goal. Particularly for SMEs, small and medium enterprises, it levels the playing field a bit.
Right. But it's not just about forms, is it? The second mechanism sounds like a huge investment in people and places.
It is. The plan calls for setting up Kiswahili institutes in all AfCFTA member countries.
Like the Goethe Institute or Alliance Française?
Exactly that model. But crucially, it's not just teaching basic Kiswahili. It's about integrating specific courses, Kiswahili for business and trade, into universities and vocational schools. That's a big part of Phase 2 in the roadmap.
Okay, building capacity. And the third mechanism, the carrot.
Right, the financial incentives. Governments in the AU, AfCFTA itself, offering things like tax breaks, maybe lower tariffs, subsidies, even preferential loans.
Targeting businesses.
Specifically businesses, especially SMEs, that actually commit to using Kiswahili in their cross-border dealings.
Makes sense.
And also funding things like certified translation and interpretation services, developing good digital translation tools. It's about making it easier and cheaper to use Kiswahili.
Okay, I get the structure mandates, education, incentives. But here's a thought. Those financial incentives, the tax breaks, the loans, aren't they super vulnerable to, well, local corruption?
That's an excellent point. And it's a major risk highlighted in the materials we looked at.
Because if that regulative pillar, the enforcement part, gets weakened by graft, doesn't the whole thing kind of crumble before the language even gets going?
It absolutely could, which is why this idea of adaptive governance is so crucial. Meaning flexible frameworks, constant monitoring, periodic audits. The rules only work if breaking them has consequences and following them has real, fairly distributed rewards.
Right.
If that regulative part fails, then the other shifts the cultural changes. The normative and cognitive pillars, they just won't happen.
Okay, that's a perfect transition.
Yeah.
Because getting the rules right is one thing, maybe the first challenge. But the next massive hurdle is shifting minds, shifting habits. How do you move from just following rules to making Kiswahili feel like the natural, the normal way to do business across Africa?
Yeah.
That brings us to the social side, the normative and cognitive pillars.
Right. So the normative pillar is about social obligation. It's about building cultural norms, shared values, expectations about what's considered, the right way to behave in business.
You want people to feel they should be using Kiswahili for trade.
Exactly. It shouldn't just feel like a rule, but like the proper professional thing to do.
So this is where role models become really important.
Absolutely. Countries like Tanzania and Kenya, where Kiswahili is already deeply embedded, not just culturally, but economically, they become the showcases. They demonstrate how the language helps regional cohesion, how it actually speeds up trade. Their success becomes social proof for other nations. Look, it works here.
And you need buy-in from professional groups, too.
Definitely. Professional endorsement is key. Trade associations like the East African Business Council, business networks, they need to integrate Kiswahili into their codes of conduct. Use it at trade fairs, in their own internal communications. And the sources gave a concrete example. The Kenya Bureau of Standards mandating Kiswahili translations on certain product labels, like food and medicine.
So that sets a clear, non-negotiable professional standard.
Precisely. It normalizes it within the business environment.
Okay, that's the normative, the should. Now, what about the cognitive pillar? This sounds more about belief, trust, shared understanding.
It is. This is maybe the most subtle, but also potentially the most powerful pillar. It's about shaping shared mental models, making Kiswahili feel like a smart, effective tool for business, creating positive associations.
This is that mimetic isomorphism idea. People copy what they see working.
Pretty much. Show, don't just tell. It's all about highlighting success stories.
So finding businesses in, say, Rwanda or Uganda or Tanzania that have genuinely used Kiswahili to overcome language barriers, build trust with partners or customers.
Exactly. And then amplifying those stories through media, through business conferences, through networks, making it visible.
The examples from telecom and banking you mentioned earlier seem like perfect illustrations here. They really show societal shifts driving economic results.
They really do. Think about Safaricom in Kenya. Their Kiswahili slogans like Twendi Tukiuke, let's go beyond. Or even the name M-Pesa, mobile money. It wasn't just marketing fluff. It immediately created a connection, built loyalty across diverse groups.
Right. It linked something new and innovative directly to a shared, inclusive African identity.
Yes, fostering that positive cognitive link, that's powerful. It builds trust in a way that maybe just using English wouldn't have.
Or Equity Bank using Pamoja na Wiwi together with you.
Another great example, it signals partnership, economic empowerment. It might make banking feel less intimidating for millions who aren't comfortable only in English or French.
So that boosts financial inclusion, which then feeds back into more economic activity, more trade.
That's the theory. If consumers start trusting brands that speak Kiswahili, businesses will see the clear economic advantage in adopting the language for their own cross-border stuff. They're labeling their services. The cognitive shift influences the economic calculation.
This whole framework, though,
Yeah.
regulative, normative, cognitive, it screams patience.
Yeah.
The sources emphasize this isn't a quick fix. It's tied to a 25-year vision.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a marathon, not a sprint. And that long time frame is deliberately aligned with the AU's bigger picture, their Agenda 2063.
And the rollout is phased. They don't try to do everything at once.
No, that would be chaos. The phases are structured to build momentum without overwhelming systems. Like, years 1 to 5 are mostly about getting the resolutions passed, doing the political groundwork, planning.
Okay.
Then years 6 to 10, that's when you launch the incentive programs, get the Kiswahili Institutes up and running, build the foundation.
And the real mandates, the must-do stuff, comes later.
Right. Years 11 to 15, that's when they plan to mandate Kiswahili as a required second language for cross-border documents.
Second language. Still allowing for others.
Initially, yes. Then the final phase, years 21 to 25, that's the push for full standardization, moving towards continental law where key trade documents are maybe primarily in Kiswahili.
Wow. That's a long game.
It has to be. Because deep cultural shifts, building that cognitive acceptance, that takes generations. But crucially, the sources stress that this plan needs that adaptive governance we talked about.
Constant check-ins, adjustments.
Exactly. Periodic reviews, policy tweaks. They have to be ready for unexpected challenges, cultural flare-ups, political resistance that just won't quit. It needs to be flexible.
Okay, let's connect this back to the really big picture. This whole strategy, relying on institutional theory, it raises that fundamental policy question, doesn't it? How does Kiswahili compete?
Compete with what?
With the deeply entrenched colonial languages.
Yes.
English, French, Portuguese. They're still the keys to global markets for many African businesses.
Yeah.
How does promoting Kiswahili deal with those powerful historical, political, and economic ties?
Yeah. That is the geopolitical tightrope they have to walk. You could argue that promoting Kiswahili is fundamentally an act of economic decolonization.
Right.
But the reality is the tools of global trade, finance, tech, they still largely operate in those European languages.
So how does Kiswahili win?
The success of this whole 25-year vision hinges entirely on whether the AfCFTA itself can generate enough internal economic pull, enough inter-African trade and opportunity to make using Kiswahili genuinely more profitable for businesses trading within Africa than sticking solely to English or French. It has to win on the bottom line, essentially outcompeting the colonial legacy where it counts most for inter-African commerce.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Well, this push to make Kiswahili the Pan-African trade language, it's a monumental effort.
Truly massive.
Yeah.
And its success really depends on getting all three pillars working together in sync.
Right. You need the rules and incentives driving efficiency that's the regulative.
You need the social pressure, the professional standards, setting expectations, the normative.
And you need that deep shift in mindset,
Yeah.
building trust and positive associations through cultural adoption, the cognitive pillar.
And achieving the AfCFTA's incredible economic promise, it takes so much more than just trade agreements on paper.
Yeah, it demands huge, sustained investment in what you could call linguistic infrastructure.
Absolutely. And a profound societal shift in mindset across 55 very different nations, getting everyone to see language not just as culture, but as a strategic economic tool that also happens to build a shared identity.
It's a powerful ambition, forging this Pan-African identity through language. But it does leave us with a final, pretty provocative question to think about. Africa is defined by its incredible linguistic diversity, over 3,000 languages. What's the real long-term impact socially, economically, culturally, of prioritizing one common language, even a neutral one like Kiswahili, when the continent's very essence is that stunning variety?
That's the deep conversation, isn't it? Balancing unity and diversity. That's the challenge policymakers and indeed citizens will be grappling with for the next 25 years and probably beyond.